Welcome to the Soul Patch Podcast, the podcast where three American expats explore different topics related to living and working in South Korea. With a combined 50 years of living experience in Asia, there are plenty of stories to tell. So, pop in your AirPods and make yourself comfortable. It's time for the Soul Patch Podcast.
Right, absolutely. Kev, your story is like, it's one of my favorite in all of Korea land of foreigners, etc. So let's tell us first, like, why, like, a lot of people go to Dokdo. Well, tell us what Dokdo is.
Yeah, let's just go ahead and start at the beginning for the people who are listening. I mean, because you guys know what Dokdo is. I mean, Dokdo is, if you live in Korea, you know what it is, because it's something that Koreans are so proud of, and it's these two little rock islands. And when I say rock islands, I'm not kidding. I mean, they are, like, there's nothing that grows on them other than rocks and seagulls. And they're way out in the East Sea. Like, in order to get to them right now, they're building an airport in Ulleungdo, but currently, in order to get there, you have to take it's like a fast boat. There's these really cool, like, hydrofoil, like, big ass boats that I get very seasick on. And you take the first boat out to Ulleungdo from the coast, and it's like an hour and a half or so on there. And then from Ulleungdo, you can take normally one of these boats. It's another hour and a half or so on these pretty fast boats, just out into the sea, into nothing, until you get to these tiny little islands. And of course, from Seoul, first you have to go to EC. So to get to Dokdo, it's like, I mean, it's a proper full day or two trip. It's a hard thing to get to. And for people who are listening, Dokdo is these two islands that Korea and Japan both claim. They're both basically saying, like, this is our land. And I mean, I'm coming from a Korean perspective, so I'm going to say that Korea has a stronger claim on it than Japan does. But regardless of historical claims or accuracy or any of that, Korea has people living there, and they have military on the base. So I mean, if nothing else, possession is 9/10 of the law. They're Korea's islands.
Now, can I ask you a quick question? Like, my understanding was the relevance or importance of this is something to do with fishing rights. Like, if that land is Korean, then they have a certain access to areas of fishing, and that's a big part of the contention. Is that, as
far as I know, like,
there's stuff like that.
There's historical reasons, and there's something that Koreans are very proud of. They're like, this is our territory. Because of course, there's the history of Japan, you know, like, over Korea and things like that. And so Koreans, it's a very nationalistic thing. Whereas most Japanese people, from what I understand, and I've not really talked to very many Japanese people about this, but from what I understand, most Japanese don't really care about the islands, but the governments do. The governments do care about them because, yes, there's political reasons. It's for fishing rights, and I think there might be some other
economic
things,
and political,
exactly. And so that's like the real reason. Well, the monetary reason that the governments fight for them. So normally, if you do a Dokdo tour, and have either of you guys ever been out there? Either of you done the tour?
Dude, like, okay, wait. He just asked us, like, have you been to Dokdo? Like, okay, let's make this clear also for the listeners. You don't just go to Dokdo. Like, it's not a thing that a lot of people have done, but I think for a lot of Koreans, right? I should say not a lot of, like, foreigners have done, but for a lot of Koreans, I do think it's a little more common because it is kind of like, it's a national heritage type of thing. It's like going to Mount Rushmore and taking a selfie kind of thing, right?
That's about all that you do there. So the first time I went to Dokdo, I've been there on three separate occasions at this point. And I'm going to go ahead and
that
say
was
this.
So pretentious. Have you ever been to Dokdo? Oh, you've never been before?
No. So eat it. Yeah. No. Okay. But so normally when you go, it's like I said, I mean, it's hard as hell to go out there, but it really is the take a selfie in front of Mount Rushmore thing. It very much is that. People go out there, and so first, like I said, you got to get out to Ulleungdo, and then you got to go there. The first time I went there actually was there was a company here in Korea a bunch of years ago. Maybe they still exist. I don't know. It was called Adventure Korea. And they used to do really cool, just like trips for foreigners around.
Is that
the
like a
country.
DMZ? They'll do DMZ runs and stuff like that.
They did the DMZ. Well, I don't know. They probably did a DMZ, but like I did a couple of tours with them. I did one where it was like river rafting on one of the rivers not too far from here. I did one where it was like the Ulleungdo and Dokdo one. It was a kind of adventure-y trips, Adventure Korea. And so the one that I did was out to Ulleungdo, which is just a cool island. And then I decided to sign up for the Dokdo one because what the hell? And When you normally the tour is you leave from Ungdo, you take this boat out for an hour and a half, and you're just sitting on this boat. Again, avoiding seasickness, and you get there, and again, there's nothing there. You land on this little like dock, this rock dock, and you can get off the boat, and you can only go in, like you can't even really explore the island at all. You can't go up, like there's hiking trails and things around the islands, kind of, and you can't explore any of that. You're just on that little dock, and you're there for like 30 minutes ish, and there's nothing there. I mean, nothing. There's nothing to buy. There's no souvenir shop.
How many people are with you on
nothing.
this tour?
Over 100 easily that fit on the boat.
Oh, I was
definitely
thinking more like Gilligan's Island, you know, like
no,
a 3-hour
like
tour,
like
and you got stuck on Dokdo for, you know.
Well, the
sorry,
stuck one,
I
that's the
jumped
next
ahead
story.
of. I'm sorry.
No, this is the
So
normal
100 people.
tour.
Okay.
It's 100. I think it's probably more, but I'm not very good at guessing people numbers. But let's just say 100-ish. So you get off the boat, and people just rush off the boat, and they've got their Korean flags, and they're just like taking selfies, and they're just like, "We're on Dokdo," you know, like this is us. And then they go on social networks, and that's what you post. And then it's back on the boat, and you're back to Ulingo, and you're done, and that's Dokdo, and that's all you do. And there's nothing to do there, literally nothing to do there, except take pictures to say that you have been there.
So it's literally like a Mount Everest sort of situation where you just get to the summit, you stand there for 30 minutes, and then you start going back. Then you go home. You're back.
And it's
I think Dokdo doesn't even have like guano deposits. I mean, it's just bald rocks. There's nothing there.
There are actually so the reason I went there on the second trip was to film a documentary, and I watched the documentary. There's actually a ridiculous amount of seagulls that camp and live there in certain seasons, like they mate and breed and stuff on Dokdo. I learned this from the documentary that I watched. So like at one point in I think the spring, there's like thousands and thousands and thousands of seagulls that are camped out on Dokdo. So there are some wildlife there, but other than birds, there's nothing, and fish, of course.
So that was the normal tour. You went the first, just to keep things in order here. So you went the first time you went on a tour. It was like on a whim.
Yep.
Okay.
I just was like, yeah, I'm here. What the hell? Let's do it.
And you're like, this dock is so beautiful. I have to come back and see this dock again.
Gotta come back.
Yeah, it's the best dock I've ever seen.
They're incredible.
Well, so here's the thing is, and I'm gonna go ahead and make this claim now. And if any of the listeners would like to refute my claim, I would love to hear this. I honestly believe, and I don't have the numbers to back this up because I don't know if these numbers are stacked anywhere. I truly believe that among all foreigners, like probably currently alive, unless you go back to like the war times or something, I believe that among like all non-Korean people, I have spent the most time on Dokdo among any other foreigners. If anyone thinks that they've spent there longer than me after this story, please contact me. Let's get together and have a beer, because
I love it.
It's a crazy place
statement.
if you were there for that long. I'm willing to make this claim. I could be wrong, but
Kevin
you'll
has
understand
thrown
why.
the Dokdo gauntlet down.
So you understand why after we talked
about
on
the soul patch. You heard it on the soul patch.
You heard it on the soul patch. There it is.
So the second time I went there, this is the epic one. The third time was really cool, and that was a different story, but the second time is really the where I clocked my Dokdo hours in, and where things just went weird. This was back in 2013, 2014, maybe 2014, I think. And as we've mentioned a couple of times, I was really into freediving, right? And because of Corona, I haven't been out diving in a very long time, but still something that I like to do.
Can you define that for us? That's where you go freediving? You hold you hold your breath underwater for
it's breath hold diving. Yeah, you hold your breath and dive as deep as possible, or hold your breath for as long as possible, which is something cool because it's basically henyo, like the Korean sea ladies, like they have those in Korea and in Japan.
Right,
they've got like one of the oldest. Yeah, like the oldest history of breath hold divers are in Korea and Japan, and one of these days I'd love to dive with them, but that's a different story entirely. Yeah. So I was really into freediving a few years ago, and when I got really into freediving, at the time, freediving wasn't really a thing yet here in Korea. Now it is. Now when I go to the pools to train freediving, or I go out to the sea or whatever, I meet everyone's just like, oh, I'm a freediver, I'm a freediver. I'm an instructor. Like it's blown up in the last few years. But at the time in 2013, 2014, I became a freediving instructor, and there were literally like 5 of us in Korea. There were like 5 freediving instructors. I knew them all. Like the community was really small. I knew everyone in the community, and I was the only foreigner in the community as well. So I was known to everyone in the community because, like a few years ago, if you're a foreigner who speaks some semblance of Korean in a group, in a relatively small group, you will be known to everyone in the group.
Were you Dokdo guy? Is that what did you have a nickname?
No, this is well before I went to Dokdo.
Oh,
I was just Kevin, the foreign freediver.
Okay.
So I got this really cool opportunity because I was a foreigner in Korea, and I was one of very few like trained freedivers. I was an instructor at the time, and one of my buddies, a freediving friend of mine, was also an instructor. So one of the other handful of us, and somehow he got contacted because at the time he was the Korean freediving record holder. Actually, he had the deepest dive. He dove to 77 meters or something crazy like that on a single breath. Yeah, it's far below my
that
record.
Gives me anxiety just thinking about it, because I could dive 7 meters. That's the end of my dive. Yeah, I stay down there.
Well, if you ever want to learn, I'll be happy to teach you, Jack. We'll jump in the pool and I'll teach you how to not breathe.
How to not breathe for 5 minutes. Okay, I'm down.
Anyone can do it. So this buddy of mine, he got contacted probably because he was the Korean record holder, and then they asked him, "Yo, do you know some other people that you can bring along?" And he contacted a few people, and I was one of them, because NBC, one of the big television companies here, they were filming a documentary about Dokdo. And so they had been out there on the island like all year long. Like I said, they were filming. It was a full like a nature documentary basically about Dokdo. So they were doing the seagulls and the land and the sea and just everything about Dokdo. And they were like, we want some free divers because we think it would be cool to film people breath hold diving, swimming around the beautiful waters of Dokdo and enjoying the fish, and just kind of like as a model, basically, like you're a swimming model in the sea. And then my buddy was like, oh, I've got a foreign buddy who would be cool to bring along as well. And I think, one, because I was an instructor, so I was relatively skilled at freediving, and 2, because foreigner, it just adds a little bit of flair to their documentary. So they invited me to come along, and I was like, sure, what the hell, this sounds fun. I was going to get paid like a tiny amount. It was like $200-300 or something like that to go out for. The plan was to go out for 4 nights, I think, like from Seoul, to go out for 4 nights and then be back in Seoul. And this was the middle of the semester, by the way.
So the total round trip was 4 nights.
I believe so. I think that was the original plan. It was a long time ago, but it was 3 or 4, but I'm leaning towards 4 nights. Yeah, there and back to Seoul. And if fortunately, I think this is a bunch of years ago past the statute of limitations, because I kind of fudged a bunch of classes when I was there. Ryan helped me. You're an accomplice.
Yeah, I'm co-conspirator to this at this point.
So
it's okay.
It was supposed to be over a weekend, so I was going to miss like 1 day of classes or something. And of course, I told the students, like, dude, I'm going to go film a documentary on Dokdo. And they were just like, what? Go. And they were like super stoked for me. And so we go out there. Right. And we take the boats and we get out to Dokdo. And the first day we arrive, it's us and the film crew. And I'll never forget, because we arrived on Dokdo with the same passenger boat that normally the tourists get off. And so all of these tourists who are there for the 30 minutes, they pile off the boat and they are just like taking picture. Meanwhile, me and our crew, we're pulling out these big bags of shit. Like, everyone else is just off and on. We're just pulling all of our luggage and all of this camera gear and setting it on the side, and all these screens. Like, what the hell are those guys doing? We're like, oh, we're camping. We're hanging out here. And so already I was like, yeah, I'm part of something cool at this point. So then everyone else gets on a boat and we're left on this tiny little island. And there's 2 of these islands. So then we actually they put all of our stuff onto tiny little boats, and we went over then back to the eastern of the 2 islands. There's East and West Island basically there. And on that island, there is a small minbak sukso, like it's just like not a hotel, because you can't stay there. It's just kind of like a building with rooms where you can sleep in.
Crash pad.
Basically. Yeah. And that was going to be our pad. And there were like 20-ish of us, maybe just under 20 of us in the crew total. And me and the freedivers, there were 4 of us total. We got one tiny room together that had one bed and a floor, and we were in this tiny little room. And the first day we jumped into the water and we did a little bit of filming, and we were like, this is cool. Let's, we've got a couple more nights. And then that first night, because we did it Korean style, they brought all this food on, and we just did like massive barbecue and soju bottles, and just had a good night, like talking about Dokdo and enjoying the fact that we're on Dokdo, and it's really cool. Then the next day, the plan again was to be there for like 3 nights on Dokdo. I think we spent 1 night getting there, because again, it's an epic trip. And so we were on Dokdo, and the plan was to be there 3 nights. And we're like, okay, the next day we're gonna do some more filming, drink some more soju, do some more filming, drink some more soju, go home. And that's basically what the plan was.
Is soju consumption conducive to free diving? That seems like might being hungover.
Yeah,
does that affect your?
It's a terrible idea.
Terrible idea. Okay.
But we weren't getting like totally hammered. It was just, like having enough to maybe feel it a little bit the next day, but not too bad.
Because I've had some hangovers where, if I'm going down a certain depth, it's like, I'm not going back up. Yeah,
it's not fun. It's not fun. But the plan was, we were just all like, it was kind of going to be an enjoyable just few days, do a little bit of work in a day, go out diving, which is just fun for us. Go out, and it's going to be some tough diving, but go out diving, enjoy the waters of this cool island. And the water there actually is pretty nice. It was a bit cold because we were there in October or November. So the water was like 12 degrees. It was a bit chilly.
What are you guys wearing? You're wearing a wetsuit, obviously.
Oh, yeah. I had I borrowed a wetsuit because I didn't have a 5mm thick one at the time. And the freediving wetsuits are like custom fit to your body. So they're really tight. So I was actually fine in the water.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't do well in cold water in general, but I was okay. So the plan was dive, drink, go home. Then day 2, so we'd only done 1 day of diving. Day 2, suddenly the waves start to come in, and there's a storm building outside. And this is where things start to get a little bit sketchy. And this is also like, if you're on the Ulleungdo trip, if you're one of the tourists who just want to go to Dokdo, you kind of have to get lucky because it's out in the middle of the damn ocean. And so the waves out there are just very unpredictable. And the boat, if the waves are getting too big, the boat won't go out. Like, so tourists it's like, sorry, your tour today got canceled. And so a lot of people go out, they're like, we're going to do the Dokdo tour. And then they just get canceled on because the weather just gets shitty. And so the next day, the weather was too shitty for us to go out and do diving. And it was too shitty for the boat to come in as well, to bring the tourists in and all of that. But we were like, well, we've got a couple more days. Let's, sit this out and see what happens. Well, then the weather just got progressively shittier for the next like 3 or 4 or 5 days. The waves were just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. They were coming in up over the dock, and we can't do any diving in that, of course.
Yeah.
And so at this point, we're stuck. We're stuck in Dokdo, and we're just like, okay, we don't know how long we're going to be here. The boats just aren't coming. So the tourist boats aren't coming. There's no boat coming out here. It's just not safe.
What are you guys doing? Are you just sitting in that little room, that little
basically
hut, basically?
Like there's no, because like I said, it's this tiny little island, so there's nothing to do. I sat in the room. Fortunately, I brought a book. I killed it in like a day and a half. I just plowed through it because I had nothing else to do. I burned through all of the data on my phone because, like we said last week, like we have 4G even on this crazy island.
I can't believe you still had internet service out there. That's
I know,
crazy.
It was epic. So I burned through all my data. I read my entire book, and then there was one small hiking trail. It wasn't even a hiking trail. It was just stairs up this mountain, this like little mountain. And we hiked it 2 times every day or something, because there's just like, you want to go back up to the top? Sure. And so we did it because there's nothing else to do there. And where things got really crazy was because then the waves kept coming in and kept getting worse. At one point, I'm like, I need to get home. Like I'm supposed to be at work today. Like I'm supposed to be at work this week, like now. And I'm talking to Ryan through chat, and I'm talking to my wife at the time, or was it fiance? Depends on when we were there. I'm like, I just want to go home. This sucks. And at one point, Ryan helped me, because I'm like, how do I cover my classes? What the hell what do I do? I can't contact them. I don't want to tell the school that I'm stuck on Dokdo and I'm missing work right now.
Because that's a believable excuse.
Right.
I'm on Dokdo. Oh, okay. Yeah, sure.
So what I do remember doing, and Ryan, you probably remember this as well. I remember I went outside our tiny little like place just right in front of the water, and I held up my phone and did a selfie video, and I was like, "Hi everyone, I'm in Dokdo. And I've panned around to show the sea where it's just like, it was snowing on us at one point and the waves are crashing over. And I'm like, I'm stuck. I'm sorry. And I remember asking Ryan, I was like, can you just go into my class and show this to them at the beginning of class and tell them to go home, but show this to them so that they have some sympathy for me. And so that's basically how I covered my classes. Then I got back and made it up somehow, I'm sure, but that was how I covered that. And where the story got even worse or more epic, I don't, depending on how you want to do it, or just another fun wrinkle to it, was because again, we were planning on being there for like 3 or 4 nights, right? So that first night when we just went like samgyeopsal crazy, we're burning through our food supplies.
Oh boy.
There's no, you can't resupply on food here. There's nothing there. There's no
they don't have a
store.
Costco on Dokdo?
No Costco, oddly enough. You think it would have enough business? No.
Now, how does I'm sorry, what did you say? I stepped in the other line there, Ryan.
Oh, I was saying you got to go fishing out in the
Right.
waves.
Well, or seagull hunting, you know?
And that's
Seagull hunting.
That's actually what ended up happening for us. So after 3 or 4 days, we basically ran out of food. And I mean, they still had rice because you always have rice, right? And so we had just rice and not a lot else. Rice, I think we had some ramen, and that's about it. Well, at one point, maybe probably after day 5. So after like day 2, we started rationing the food just a little bit to get it to last us a little bit longer. And by around day 5 or 6, we were pretty much out of food. And at this point, this is where a couple of the guys, and now the waves are getting small enough for us not really to film. They can't put the cameras in the water yet because these are like underwater, like high def HD cameras. I mean, they cost like 50 grand a piece or something like that. Like these cameras are epic, massive things. So they can't throw those in the water yet. But the free divers, well, we don't really need any gear. We just jump in the water and go swimming. And a couple of the guys, and I'm not going to use any names because this is a bit on the illegal side, decided to do some spearfishing while we were there. And Korea is weird. Yeah, that's what you said. We went fishing. Well, we went fishing. Spearfishing actually is really weird in Korea. It's actually illegal to go spearfishing in Korea. Fishing is fine. Normal fishing is fine. But there's laws against spearfishing primarily because they don't understand, like, they just haven't written laws for spear guns. Especially like for spear guns when you're on scuba, that makes sense for it to be illegal in my opinion, because you're underwater, you're breathing, it's just like you just shoot fish. But when you're free diving, you're on a single breath of air. It takes quite a bit of skill to go down and hunt a fish. Like no one is going to drain a fish population free dive spearfishing. So they should change the laws on this, in my opinion. But
make it illegal. You should get a medal for that if you catch something.
Yeah, spearfishing is another really cool thing. So a couple of the guys went in and did some spearfishing. A couple of people did some henyo style diving, and they were basically like just picking up the like different like mussels and clams and things like that off of that. And so then a couple of the guys they came back, and I wasn't very good at spearfishing, so I just kind of like snorkeled around and watched the guys who know what they're doing. I let them do the actual hunting. Something I want to learn, but I just have never gotten around to. And so they went out and did some fishing and some foraging in the sea, and that was our dinner for the next couple of nights actually. But it was a bit more fun than this, because our dinner for the next couple of nights, all of the like mussels and clams and these kind of like it's called a soda. It's like a big snail, basically an underwater snail. It's got like a big like round shell and goes up in there. And you just pop it out there. You can cook them a bunch of different ways. We ended up just making soda pop. It's like, I don't know what they're called in English, like giant snail. I'm just going to call it giant snail rice.
Moon snail,
sea sails, something like that. Yeah. So they just cut it up and threw it into rice, and that was dinner. We didn't have we didn't have all the meat. We didn't have anything. It was just rice with little chopped up bits of seafood in it. One of the guys, I felt really bad because he actually caught a couple of like proper decent sized fish. Like I'm holding up my hands for the people who are listening. It's a good like 1.5 foot, 2 foot size fish. Like they caught a couple of good things. And we actually didn't get to eat those because at this point we're so out of gear, or not gear, but like supplies, that the producer, he is in contact with, because the other island, we're on the eastern of the island, the west island, there is a marine or what's the like Coast Guard base basically on that other island. And the producer, because you kind of have to get like government, you have to get government permission to stay on Dokdo, which is another reason it was really cool for me to go there, like just to get this government permission, very unique thing. And he was in touch with the military over there, and he's like, yo, we got some fresh fish for you. Can you trade us some shit? And so we sent over our fish. And so my buddy who caught these two fish, he was just like, oh, but he basically gave up his fish, and we traded it for ramen, soju, and cigarettes. For the
now
crew.
Cigarettes, is that part of the free divers?
None of the free divers smoked.
Okay,
in that team. Although I do know some free divers who do smoke, but none of us in that specific crew, they did. It was more of the filming crew. They smoked, so they traded for just other necessary supplies apparently. And so that's like we traded with the Marines for food and alcohol. And then our last like few nights was just waiting for the waves to get down. Finally, on the last 2 days, the waves were down low enough. We actually did get out into the sea and do some filming. And I've got the link on YouTube. I cut out my part of the documentary actually, with just the free divers in it. So I've got that on a YouTube video. I will send it to you, Jack, to put it in the liner notes if anyone wants
sure. I'll put a link to it. That sounds so cool.
Yeah, I mean, it is actually a cool video to watch it, and I'm easy to spot because even when I'm underwater, I'm the only one wearing like a camouflage suit, and I've got white fins as opposed to like black fins. So it's just like, oh, there's Kevin. It's super easy to spot me, which made it even more cool that like because I was wearing a cool suit, I got a little bit more camera time, I think. So in the end, we were there for 9 nights on Dokdo. 9 nights when we were supposed to be there for 3 on the island. 9 nights on this tiny little island, running out of food with nothing to do, attempting to work, and then that's it. And then we finally went home, and of course I still got paid the same like $200 because there wasn't any overtime for any of this.
Pretty sad.
Yeah, and that was that trip. And at the time, I just remember thinking, like I said, I called my fiance at the time. I was like, honey, I just want to go home. This is bullshit. I don't want to be here. It's snowing. The waves are coming in. This sucks. Now it's a cool story. I'm very glad to have that story, but it was crazy, and something that I never would have expected. And to be able to have gone to Dokdo and stay there, to sleep on Dokdo, to dive on Dokdo, is something that, I mean, most Koreans haven't been to Dokdo even to do a tour. All of those other things, like to even find a Korean person who's done that is very rare. And to find a foreigner who's been there for that long, I think is, again, that's where I'm making the bold claim that I have been there the longest.
You'd be hard pressed to find a Korean person that spent 9 nights on Dokdo Island.
Other than the military who are based there, and the other people who have like filmed documentaries and things like that, or people who might be out there researching or something like that, which is,
God again, knows how
a very small population.
What bad luck, bad straw you drew to get that assignment in the military. Just
right.
Don't send me to Dokdo. Don't send me to Dokdo. Damn it! I'm going to Dokdo.
Yeah, so that was that trip. I did go one more time after, but unfortunately the story isn't quite as epic. I'll just wrap it up really quick. I got to go another time, again connected to diving, but this time it was for translation. I got to go to, there was an underwater photography festival for foreigners coming in to do underwater photography there. And so they needed someone to talk to all the foreigners and basically to translate between the Korean crew and the foreign divers, and be like, okay, food is this way, lunch is this way, this is your dive spot, and things like that. And so I went one more time a couple years later, and I don't know if you guys can see it, I got the little like Dokdo like paperweight here from that. And so that was I was again clocked more time on Dokdo there. We weren't sleeping on Dokdo that time. We were staying on Ulleungdo, and we went out on the boat every day, 2 or 3 days for that. But I got yet more Dokdo time.
I can't believe they didn't just make you an honourary citizen after that. I mean, that's
I probably should. Yeah, honestly, like that's
just go to immigration and be like, I spent 9 nights on Dokdo, and they'd be like, here, sir, you're.
Yeah, I'm more Korean than you at this point. I think I qualify for. I need the special passport, the one the president's got.
Yeah. Oh man, that was crazy. That is crazy.
It was an epic story. I mean, but like I said, it's a cool story, and it really is like I'm glad I said yes to it at the time. I got to be in a documentary about Dokdo, which again I'll link you. I got to have this crazy story about going there, and I'm super glad that I did it, even if it was stressful at the time. You know, all the best stories have stress at the time.
Well, were you hesitant at any point to like say no to this? You know, because everyone
I think the
knows
only
it's
reason
just
I was really
rocks,
hesitant was
you know?
because it was during the semester, and I didn't want to fuck with work. And that was
Okay.
probably like, if it was during the summer, there would have been zero hesitation. I've been like, yeah, I got nothing else to do this week. Like, let's go to Dokdo. What the hell? But because it was in the middle of the semester, I was hesitant. But they were like, yeah, it's just gonna be a weekend trip. It's in and out, 20 minutes, you'll be fine. And then it was not that. So otherwise, no. I mean, I was happy for the opportunity. My buddy told me you can go to Dokdo. I was like, this sounds fun. Like, I get to be in a documentary. You're gonna pay me to do this, even if it's only a couple $100. Like, what the hell? This is gonna be cool.
That's a very cool opportunity. I mean, I can't imagine you know, how you must have felt when you start hitting like day 5 and day 6 and you're rationing food. You must have, did it ever cross your mind? You're like, am I getting out of here? You know, like, is this what if the weather gets even more serious? That is like I'm suppose that's like typhoon season, right? I mean,
yeah, I guess it would have been, because October, November, it's like right at the end. I don't know if there was a typhoon that came through or what. I don't know the specific weather pattern. But there was talk at the time of like, how long are we going to be here before they like send a chopper out for us or something? There was talk about it at the time. I remember of just being like, when the hell are we going to get out of here? I don't know when that would have actually happened. I don't know what, like, if we really, really ran out of food, like fully, like we have no more rice, what would have happened at that point? Probably the military would have just given us supplies. I would assume, I would hope they're not going to let us starve on the island. That would be really bad press. But no, there was definitely, I mean, no one wanted to be there at that point. Like, the first night, I mean, it was just all jovial. Everyone's like, hey, I mean, the film crew, they were like, we're back on Dokdo. This is fun. We're here with this foreigner who kind of speaks Korean. This is hilarious. And it was just all good times. And then by day 9 or 10, it was just like, here's some shitty rice for dinner. Go
it's
eat
got
it
muscles.
and go back to your room. It's got muscles. That's what we've got. The spirits definitely sank by the end. At least until finally it was like, the boat's coming tomorrow. We're like, oh my God, our saviors.
God, I can't imagine that first night at home must have been just heavenly.
No,
like, you know.
Yeah, just getting back was, very.
So how was the route? How was the route back? Because it was unplanned. So when you finally did get out, what time did you leave the island?
Honestly, I think we still left the island. It was daytime. I don't remember like exact like time. I don't remember exactly how it worked, but it was definitely
back all in the same day.
Pretty
big haul.
It is a big haul. I kind of think we did. I think they arranged for us. They got the timing right, because the hard part is to get back from Dokdo, and then you have to catch the regularly scheduled boats from Ulleungdo to the mainland. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure this was a bunch of years ago, and at this point I just remember like it being over. It's like, I'm done, I'm going home. But no, I don't remember having to spend another night on Ulleungdo. I'm pretty sure it was just like fly us back, and we got back into town on that day. So I think it was a long haul. I mean, it's a full day. And like the boat that we got back out on as well, it was one of the military boats that came out. It wasn't one of the tourist boats. It was a military boat that came out that we got to go back on. I mean, it's a military boat with like seating and stuff for like non-military people. But yeah, we got to go out on that, and they were just like, I think it was just pick us up and go back. Like they weren't bringing out tourists on that day or anything. It was just, we got to get those crazy docu crew back to the mainland.
Wow. Yeah. You were a castaway on Dokdo.
I was very much castaway. We were all castaway on Dokdo. And I should get a Dokdo tattoo or something at this point, actually, just to show my Dokdo는 우리랑. That's what the Koreans say. Dokdo is our territory.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But as a teacher, that's a great story to be able to share with your students, and
it's a great story to show with, any Korean people, and it's like, have you been to Dokdo? I was like, I've been there for 9 nights. I slept on it. It's like, what? Huh? Who are you? Like, oh, I'm Mr. Dokdo.
Like you have to wonder, like, not to keep on beating the point, but like when you think about the fact that you got to sleep there even one night, for a foreigner to do that, it's just not available. It's not a thing.
It's not.
Yeah, you had, like you said, you had a government permission.
It's not available for Korean people to just do it. Like, just to sign up.
So even for most Koreans, it's insanely rare, and then to have that like accidentally extended, like times 2, that's
like 9 days. I mean, that's nuts.
9 nights,
10 days, man. 10 days.
Yeah.
I just read an article. Maybe we talked about this last week, but we did, right? For the Independence Day, Korea's independence, we
mentioned it after flights. We cut.
Oh, was it? Okay, we didn't mention it on the podcast. Like you could pay for a flight where they take you. You never actually you land in the same airport where you leave.
Flying tourism, terrible for the environment.
I mean, that to me, that's like the most depressing the trip you could ever take would be where you take off and land at the same airport. It's but in this case, they're doing a drive-by of Dokdo, right? Because of
they were
a way to show your patriotism.
Yeah, exactly. I read that same article, and I think there were 2 flights that flew out for the not Independence Day. What was the day? Liberation Day.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and I think there were 2 flights. It was like 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. I remember reading the same article, and one of someone that they interviewed from it, they were like, "Yeah, I got to show my children Dokdo." And again, for people who are listening, like, Dokdo is this island that Korean people really care about. Like, it's their land. Like, this is their thing. And the government, like the 2 governments, that Korea and Japan, they're fighting about it for reasons. But the Korean people, they're like, no, like, we care about it. If you talk to most Korean people, they will say like, oh yeah, of course, Dokdo is ours. And if you talk to most, it's got a different name, of course, in Japanese. So there's like most Japanese people, but even then, from what I understand, they're like,
what's the Japanese? Is it Takashima?
It is. Yep.
Yeah, I remember.
It was actually really funny. I remember when I was there on Dokdo the first couple of nights when we were all sitting around drinking, I was like, should I make a Takashima joke or not? Like, if I'm the foreigner here, like, if I say like, is this funny or not? Like, if I say like, like, cheers to Takashima before I take a drink, like, am I gonna get my ass beat or not? Like, on this, and I was like,
they're like, no, we only had only 3 divers came with us. There weren't 4. There were no 3. Foreigner. Yeah, there was no foreigner here. Yeah,
and fortunately, the Koreans that I was with, one of them made the joke before I did. I was like, oh, sweet, okay, this is fair game. We have a sense of humor here. We are allowed to joke about Takashima, allowed to joke about Dokdo. So it is a joke that you're allowed to make. It's not that sensitive of a topic, but it is something that Korean people do.
And then you were like, damn it, that was gold. I
could have used that
opportunity.
That was mine.
But yeah, it's funny how, like, you're right, it is it's super contentious. If you ever listen to a Korean person talk about it, they get very animated about the I mean, it's the history with Japan is so horrible.
I think I just saw something about like the president Moon Jae-in. He was just in some European country. I just saw it really briefly on the news, like in the last month, sometime during the Olympics, I think. And they were like, oh yeah, our history books of Korea and Japan, like when they were sending the explorers like way back in the like 1600s. And they were like, our history books, our maps from this time, they show Dokdo as Korean territory. And so Korea is just always looking for things to be like, oh, look, this other country is corroborating our story that this was Korean territory, even back 400 years ago. You guys have probably seen it as well. Like if you take the airport train out to Incheon, right?
It's always on loop. Right. It's an advertisement.
There's like a loop. There's a loop that's basically like, Dokdo is Korean. According to these historical documents, it shows that Korea was here and blah, 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 blah. Like, this is something.
Well, actually, you said that, you're kind of like maybe biased because of being in Korea, whatever. I took a deep dive when I learned about Dokdo. I wanted to understand what the conflict was, because the first thing I discovered, which probably everybody discovers, you look at most of the propaganda about it shows a picture of it, you look at it, you're like, that's not really that impressive. You know, you're
No.
like, well, it is. I mean, it's just a couple of rocks. I mean, it is the most boring ass island you could imagine.
In the middle of nothing. There's nothing you can see.
Yeah. So I put a little effort into trying to understand what the conflict was all about. And man, I don't think you're being biased in saying that. Like, Korea has such a better claim to the land. It's like the debate is kind of like Korea just wants like, hey, Japan, just admit it's ours, and Japan's like, meh.
Oh, right.
Like, that's not, they're not even fighting back. They're just like, no, I don't want to say that. But they're not like making, Japan's not making an effort to get to Takashima. Japan's not like, as far as I know, there's no like, has there ever been a conflict for Dokdo?
In terms of that, no, there's never been like not that I've ever heard of. However,
like if you're in Osaka, do you see like advertisements like Dokdo, Takashima's ours?
But just recently I did see again in the news, maybe within the last 2-3 months or so, they were angry about this in the news because there were some Japanese school books that were claiming Takashima as theirs.
Oh.
And so there is some Japanese propaganda out there. It's not nearly as pervasive as the Koreans is. And again, I agree with you. I think Korea has
does that textbook just simply have a map and then it includes the word Takashima on these little rocks? Or is it like a paragraph that says, you know, Korea stole this land from us? And like, you know, I think it's more like the first case. Like
it is almost certainly, like, I don't remember exactly, but I'd be willing to bet that it is like that first case. Yeah, it's just like, here's a map of Japanese territory and it includes this tiny island out in the middle of the from Japan, they call it the Sea of Japan, the East Sea.
And this is all part of, this is also, you have to set this in the context of some other issues as well, like the, and we don't have to get into this, but the comfort women, you know.
Just there's a lot of things that Korea and Japan are just fighting for things for, and Japan is just like, we're just not gonna.
Well, because it's almost like, I don't know if this is the right expression, but it's almost like Japan is gaslighting Korea in some ways, you know, by just refusing to admit reality. It kind of drives people crazy. You know what I mean?
In general, they have a policy that's from here forward looking. So it's embedded in their current politics, and it's been for quite a while, is to like, there is no room for apology, because it's not they don't feel bad for those events, it's that apology is not non-applicable. That belongs to a different people, a different era. We're here, we're going forward, is the way I understand.
And then I think that, and
then frustrating for anybody else on the outside, because it's like, come on, I mean, you could just admit that these things happen. I mean, that's the smallest thing you could do.
And also when the Prime Minister of Japan will go to a certain shrine and pay respects to certain people who were you know, perpetrators of these war crimes, that's where it gets all kind of muddy, because it's like you know, they're willing to look back in that specific instance. So it's like, I do think there is I don't know if they're just sitting there like twisting their mustaches going, we gaslighted them, you know, Koreans are so upset. But it is I think there is like you said, like they just can't, why can't you just, let's just admit the reality and then you can move forward and then move on. Instead, it's like these people are stuck. Like an adult. Like an adult. You just acknowledge the reality of what happened. You know,
I'm biased. I'm talking smack about Japan. I'm biased.
It's like I had some German friends. They're younger generation, like my, you know, Generation X or whatever, my age or a little bit younger, and they're, you know, super liberal. They love Michael Moore, and they, you know, were, you know what I mean. It was just like they had evolved past this because there was some sort of, you know, admission. And so they moved past it, you know, in a way. There's still, we remember it, but there was an acceptance of responsibility, which is kind of important. And I feel like it's never going to happen. And the time is running out so quickly here, because the age of these of the victims they're just getting, you know, people are getting so much older, and they're just kind of running the clock out instead of just like taking responsibility. It's like, we're just going to run out the clock. And I can understand why that would piss a lot of people off, you know. And I think so coalescing around something like Dokdo is some like tangible thing, you know, that you can rally around, even though it's just a piece of rock.
Personifies the whole dynamic.
Exactly. And
but there's no threat of that being a flashpoint. Like
Mhm.
No, it's never going to go into a war.
Yeah, we're not going to see like fighter
battle.
standing on Dokdo.
No, but that's where you're right. It is that symbol. That's where people go out there and they take these pictures of Dokdo to put on their social networks, not because it's something cool, I mean, it is an epic trip to go out there, but it's primarily just because you're showing national pride. It's like, this is ours, and it's national pride, and it's national pride about from the history of, you know, like pushing off our oppressors and things like that. There's a lot of that to it, and so Dokdo is an interesting thing. And if you, for listeners, if you're here in Korea, talk to Korean people about it. It's an interesting topic, like, and everyone's got an opinion on it. It is a topic that everyone knows something about while you're here, foreigner or Korean alike.
Yeah, it's super fascinating. Yeah, and
yeah. Or write us an email and ask me if I have any questions about it, because I would love to expand. Or again, if you know anyone who's been on there longer, I will buy them a beer and hear their story, because I would be fascinated to hear it and be proven wrong. I'm always happy.
9 nights.
I'm happy to be proven wrong. Always. I know I'm not always right here. So, but
awesome.
I'm holding that claim, at least for now.
I don't know if we, you know, is this like appropriate to even add something onto this?
Man, I'm not going to follow that story.
Okay,
my material is like it's all like just B-roll. It's not going to work.
Okay, okay, yeah. I mean, that is it is an epic. It's an epic story. So I think we should this should be the Dokdo episode.
Yeah,
and we should leave it in the can. Yeah, but
yes, but I really would love to hear if anyone has any questions or opinions about Dokdo. Like, please let me know, if this is something that I kind of know a lot about, and it'd be fascinating to hear what other people have to say or think or agree or disagree. I like disagreements as well. So as Jack has said many times before, shoot us an email and we will read it out loud. What is it? thesoulpatch@gmail.com. That's right.
thesoulpatch@gmail.com. We will read your, but at SEOUL is the you know, the pun. Don't forget the pun. I just like one last question for you though, but has this has this changed your mentality about, like, you know, saying, are you more reticent to say yes to something given how it turned out? Or I mean it's such a cool story that it would probably make me more likely to say yes, you know, to more
I'm more
things.
likely to say yes yet again. I think we talked about this like really in one of our early episodes. One of the reasons I came to Korea was just saying yes, and just like, yeah, what the hell, let's go to Korea. And I mean, that's kind of how life has been, is just yes. And I mean, I've got tons of travel stories about that as well, and those are not Korea related, and so we don't need to talk about them. But it's like, I was, you know, on some island, or I was in Thailand or whatever, and some people were like, hey, do you want to do this? And I was like, oh, what the hell? And those ended up being the coolest stories that I have. And yeah, like my Dokdo story, at the time, it was stressful. I was not a happy camper. I really wanted to come home. But now it's one of the coolest Korea stories that I have. Mm-hmm. So I would absolutely do it again, even knowing what was going to happen. I would just pack more food and another book. And yeah, I would absolutely do it again. And I would absolutely, if somebody else said like, hey, do you want to go out to this other island or this other thing? Sure, what the hell? As long as I'm not worried about work or something like that, yeah, sign me up. Let's go fishing.
Yeah. So I think I would say that's the moral of the story here, is you definitely say yes. Say yes to everything, man.
Always.
Like, just you know, yeah. And that's, I mean, that is I think every traveler that I've come across, because I would say, you know, even though we live here and this is like, we have a career and we built a life in Korea, there's still that kind of traveler mentality. I think is just already we were, you know, it took a lot to say yes just to come to Korea in the first place, or to, you know, come to Asia. But I'm telling you, the more you say yes, the more you know, the things that you'll experience you'll take with you forever. You know, it's
yep.
Yeah. All right.
That's stories.
Awesome. Kevin, thank you for sharing your Dokdo story.
That was awesome, dude.
Yeah, glad to share. It's fun to talk about.
I still, in my mind, I just see like I see an island with one palm tree, and you know what I mean? Like it's just like a little a hump, and with one palm tree sticking out. But this is
it's not quite so tropical, unfortunately, but yeah,
right. Yeah, true, right.
Anyone can go out and Google. Yeah. Anyone can go out and Google Dokdo and see what there's tons of images of the two islands, and I mean, they're just rocks. out there. They're kind of big rocks, but they're just rocks. And again, check out the show notes. I'll send you, Jack. I'll get you that link right now so you can put that YouTube clip up.
We'll definitely put that in the show notes so that people can link to that and check out that documentary. That's so cool that you were in a documentary.
I only put it's only my part of the documentary, so you're not watching a full 1 hour Korean documentary. It's only about 7 minutes, and it is still only in Korean.
You mean we don't get to learn about the seagulls? I mean,
if you want, Jack, I do have the entire file. I will gladly send it to you. I have the whole thing. They sent me a DVD for being on it, so I do have it, but I'm not going to put that on the website.
I'm kind of disappointed you never got to find out what seagull tastes like, but
no, just fish. At the time we were there, the seagulls were
that would have been like 14, 15 days, and I think you probably would have found out, but
probably.
Thank you for joining us this evening at the Soul Patch Podcast. You know where to find us: Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, TuneIn. You can also just go to our website, which is thesoulpatch.com, and it's got all of the links to places to download it. If you want to watch it on the YouTube channel, our YouTube channel is the Soul Patch Podcast. You can like the videos. You can subscribe to the channel. We're always looking for subs. And like Kevin said, send us an email at thesoulpatch@gmail.com. And we've made a promise. We're going to read the first email that we get out loud on the podcast. Win, lose, or draw. It's coming out. So be the first to tell us what you think about us. And that's it for tonight. I guess we'll see you next week at the Patch. So Kev, Brian, thanks guys.
Cheers.
I'd like to pay a couple respects to the people that made me what I am today.
Docking gear. It's all my love. It's all my love. The quiet man. It's all my love. It's all my love. Dopamine. Jim. It's all my love. It's all my love. It's all my love. The brain. It's all my love. It's all my love. Hey Bobby, let the bass go.